Living in harmony is possible if you know your emotions and how to handle them. Dr. Carmen Roman will share with you in an engaging way the current psychology by sharing herself or interviewing experts who will inspire you. Learn how to live a life of fullness and how to recover your emotional harmony with Dr. Roman. Welcome to Emotions in Harmony.
Hello, amigos in harmony. I am so glad you are here in another episode of Emotions in Harmony, your favorite podcast, I know. You can follow us in Instagram, in Twitter, in Facebook Live every Tuesday at 12. You can find us. This is Carmen Roman. I am a clinical psychologist, and I am here to make your life better. Isn't that fun? I am here to help you to live in harmony. And today we are going to talk about something that may probably give you a lot of stress, evaluation immigrations. And we are going to talk to you, explain to you, prevent you, and hopefully give you the information so you can have a better experience when you need an evaluation immigration. I have with me Cecilia. Cecilia is born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and came as a child to the United States. Now she lives in Virginia, in Washington. And she's a social worker, a licensed social worker with, we did just discover in the Spanish episode, with a certificate in adoption, in specialization in adoption, especially with Latino families. She is, where is the university, Cecilia, that you have your social worker?
Boston College.
In Boston College. So she can do EMDR, she can do immigration evaluations, therapy with families, with couples, etc. You will be so happy to listen today from Cecilia, because she believes in a holistic approach that incorporates all the areas of the client. And of course, this holistic approach gets to be applied for her immigration evaluations. Yeah? Hi, Cecilia.
Hi, how are you?
Tell us a little more about you, or what is so exciting about you? Tell us.
I'm not sure I'm very exciting, but I'll tell you about me. As you said, I'm a clinical social worker. I'm coming up on 19 years of doing this. And I've worked in lots of different places, in schools and hospitals and clinics. And I found that throughout these 19 years, the one thing that was always constant is that I always was working with immigrants. It didn't matter, probably because of my language skills. Also, I'm an immigrant, so I always feel an affinity towards this population. So it doesn't really matter the area. And as you mentioned, adoption as well. I've always worked with this population, and it's something I really love doing.
Wow, we are a bunch of immigrants here, for other immigrants.
Yes.
And we have Lydiana Garcia, Dr. Lydiana Garcia. She's a bilingual from Puerto Rico. She's a licensed psychologist in Los Angeles, California. She has been also working with immigrants, with undocumented Latino populations. She's expert in trauma, in parenting, and in topics of motherhood, and of course, in evaluation immigrations. So this is what we are talking today. As you can see, I got the best for this topic. Cecilia has a Facebook of group, and we are going to put the link. If somebody is an immigration evaluator and wants to join Cecilia's group, we are going to put the link there for her to be working with us in the evaluation immigrations. And you find Lydiana everywhere also. And pretty soon in her podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, Lydiana?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, we'll definitely have to have a episode about immigration evaluations and just being an immigrant. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Lydiana is a PhD in counseling psychology from the, oh my God. I have in English and Spanish. Is in Spanish the Universidad Interamericana?
Technically, yes, because it's in Puerto Rico. Yeah, Universidad Interamericana. Mhm.
And she did her hours in the Children's Institute, an APA side approved in Los Angeles, California. So, and she's licensed since 2012. So we have these two experts in immigration, in evaluation immigrations, because we have been working for the last couple of years on that, and also in working with trauma, or this particularly is skills to do an interview with care and love for you. Yeah.
Yes.
You want to say something else about you, Lydiana? Something fun.
Something fun. I guess right now, this whole starting the podcast, it's been scary and fun in the sense that I have had to watch so many YouTube videos of how to. So that's what's right now in my mind, like how to take the echo out of the recording, how to use GarageBand, how to use the mixer, and learning all these skills. And I feel like I wish even though I'm kind of still a millennial, I feel like there's definitely like I'm asking a lot of 20-somethings like how to use this. So that's what's right now. And I'm in the midst of a move, literally. Like I moved on Monday, so I know it's the worst. And I would never do that. I learned because I had a full week of a lot of things. Like yesterday, I worked till like almost 7 p.m. Yeah. So like,
moving.
Yes.
Podcasting.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot going on.
Yes, a lot going on. Yeah. Yep.
That was really fun, Lydiana. Thank you. That made me my life just lighter.
Fun. Yeah, this is what fun is now as an adult, I guess. Yeah.
What is a psychological evaluation? Let's go into the topic. What is a psychological evaluation, Cecilia, or an immigration report?
So your lawyer might be asking you to get an evaluation for your case. And what it does is it looks at all the aspects of your life. You know, we were going to examine your personal history, how you grew up, your education, your work history, all your relationships. If you're married, your marriage, if you have children, your parenting. And in addition to that, we're really going to focus on whatever type of case it is. So if it's an asylum case, we're going to look at the reasons that you fled your country. And whatever it is, we're going to look at not only what happened, but the impact, the psychological impact that that's had on your life. And so the lawyer will take that and use it in addition to lots of other documents to help support your case.
Okay. Something else, Lydiana?
Yes, everything that Cecilia said. The thing that I would add is in my case when I integrate psychological testing. So, there's definitely the part of the history of the client and the information and a lot of dates and all that kind of things. But it's also integrated not only what the person says, but also the observations and then through the psychological testing. And in my evaluations, there's also a diagnosis and there's a summary and a recommendations. And so it's kind of like people think it's like just 1 or 2 pages, but in average, they're like about 7-8 pages of all that information being integrated. Yeah.
So the psychological evaluation requires time and requires some information. So my next question is, if I am the client, what I can ask to my lawyer before talking to my evaluator? What information I need from my lawyer? Lydiana, maybe?
Yeah, okay. I would say definitely first to know the date of when is the evaluator needed, the evaluation needed. And because a lot of times it's needed as soon as possible. And sometimes many of the clients leave it at the end. And I've heard also that with some clients that maybe the lawyer let them know at the beginning, but they did not remind them. And then out of the blue, it's like, oh, you're going to, your case is like in a month and you needed this. So I'll make sure that if you need one or if it's being recommended to have the date that you need the report to be given to the lawyer, not when the date of the case is being like the hearing. And the other thing is what type of evaluation. I've had a lot of clients that call me and they have no idea or they're confused. And when that happens and I get them, it's so confusing. There's so much going on in their lives, is to at least have the name and the phone number of the lawyer and to already have filled some information for us to release us to be able to speak with the lawyer. So that way I can just communicate with the lawyer and ask them what kind of evaluation. But that's in general the two main things that it's important to have.
Yeah. Cecilia, you want to add something to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the main thing is one thing that Lydiana already mentioned about having it really clear what type of evaluation and who we're evaluating, because sometimes the main client for a lawyer isn't going to be my main client. And so it's just really important to make sure that we're doing the evaluation on the right person. The other thing I'm going to add, which I don't think I said in the Spanish interview, is ask your lawyer for a couple of names. It's usually your lawyer that's going to give you the list of clinicians that can do these type of evaluations. And I like people to have a choice. All things being equal in terms of experience and education, you have to make sure that the person that is evaluating you is a good fit. And so I'd like people to have a choice and be able to call a couple of clinicians, speak on the phone with them a little bit, and make sure it's going to be a good choice for them. This is whenever possible. I know that sometimes people live in areas where there's not a lot of choice or there isn't a lot of time to do these evaluations. But if you do have that opportunity, it's nice to be able to make sure that you take the time to find a clinician that you feel comfortable with, because you're going to be sharing a lot of personal information with them.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah, it's important that you have a list of evaluators and psychologists, therapists, MFTs in your area who be doing evaluations. For example, if you go to my website, you don't see I do evaluations, because if I advertise, I will be like crazy. So I don't advertise it. I have contract or agreements with lawyers or local communities or whatever that they send me, and I have more than enough. Well, after this podcast, probably we'll have more. But you can contact us and say, can you do that for me? What do I need from the lawyer, etc. Have the name of the lawyer and the phone number and sign the paper so we can talk to them. Perfect. So now, if I am the client, how do I prepare for an evaluation? Let's start with Cecilia.
Sure. Well, what I always tell my clients is, I'm not going to ask you a question that you don't know the answer to, because this is all about you and your life, and you're the expert on that. That being said, there's a couple of things that are really helpful for me to have ahead of time that you can prepare. Mainly to write down or bring with you any important dates. So that could be birth dates of family members, dates that you got married or divorced. And also, if you are seeing an ongoing therapist, it's helpful to have that person's contact information. Again, just with a lawyer, we'll ask you to sign a release so that we can contact that person. But that can be really helpful in us getting the whole picture of what's happening in your life. And so that's also important if you can bring that information with you.
Mm-hmm.
Lydiana?
Yeah, I also like to add that there's not that much that you can do to prepare in terms of it's not a memory test. It's not something of like a math test. This is more about your life, but it would be definitely good to have dates, even the dates of when you immigrated, because I've had situations that the information that they provide me, the clients, differs from the information that they provided the lawyer. And I mean, from a traumatic perspective, it definitely makes sense. Remembering such a specific information might be complicated. But if you have that, or if you have the documents, let's say if it's for a U visa and you have the documents of the crime, if you can bring those, any kind of document that you have, your medical records, if you have to bring it with you, or even if there's children, if sometimes I ask, do you have their report cards or just a little information about their school, and all those kind of extra documents that could be helpful. And the other thing that I like to recommend is also just to know that, because it will be most likely talking about things that many people don't want to remember, don't want to talk about, to rest and come, well nourished, have food before coming. And when you are looking for a therapist or a psychologist to do the evaluation, to make sure that you feel that the person that you'll be talking about is a good fit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's important to know that you are going to be in a very special situation talking about your life, your very personal life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to prepare in the sense that you don't need to put together your memories. Leave it to the evaluator. Yeah. Leave it to the evaluator and just follow, get with the flow with the questions and whatever. That is not your job. You can relax about it. Your job is to be there on time, to be there willing to answer the questions, and to be there to willing to do the best you can. And the rest, it will be taken care if your evaluator is doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
What is the type of evaluation that is right for me if I am a client? Let's start with Lydiana.
Yes, this will depend on the type of evaluation, whether it's an asylum case, an U visa, a hardship. So it depends, or a cancellation of removal. So depending of what is what I like to refer to as the referral question in terms of the evaluation, then that will be the right evaluation for you. And I will leave, Cecilia is really good at explaining the difference kind of thing. The piece that I will talk about would be more of knowing that the person that is going to do the evaluation hopefully has experience doing those, and to trust them, like knowing that if they have the experience, that the questions that they'll ask. Now, there are some evaluations that are more, that could include like psychological full evaluations that would include psychological testing. And there's a lot of cases that might not be needed, or if the professional has a master's degrees and cannot administer some of them, because some of them can be administered by anyone with a master's degree, then also to kind of know that kind of thing and take that in consideration later on when we talk about cost and all that. But I know Cecilia will be much better talking about the different yes.
Not that you're putting me on the spot, right?
Sorry. Yeah.
You're good at it, Cecilia. So.
So the way I conceptualize it, and I keep telling people, like, this is how I've organized it in my mind. There is nowhere, like, this is not how immigration organizes it. But I divide it into three main areas. One is a waiver if you are applying for your citizenship. Anyone who's gone through the process, I've gone through the process. You have to take a civics exam. You have to prove that you speak English. There's a waiver for that if there's any condition that makes it difficult for you to be able to complete those tasks. And that waiver is something that only either a medical doctor or a doctoral level psychologist can do. Because if you're looking at a waiver because of intellectual disability, they need to be able to measure that. So that's one type. The second type that I group together, because they're very similar, are hardship waivers and cancellation of removal. So this is where you have a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, and they are married to an immigrant, or they're the child or the parent of an immigrant. And that's a case where we would evaluate the U.S. citizen to look at how they would be affected if their family member wasn't in the United States. And then the third group, I really clump a lot together, but the one thing that these all have in common is trauma. In this type of evaluation, the client has experienced trauma in some way or form. So that includes asylum, which has been in the news a lot lately, and that's when someone's fleeing their country because they are being persecuted. The second type is called VAWA, which stands for Violence Against Women Act. And even though it has the word women in it, it can be for men as well. So anyone who's suffered in a domestic violence situation and they are the immigrant and the abuser is a U.S. citizen, that's another type. Then you have the last two are called U visa and T visa. And U visa is for someone who has been the victim of a crime in the U.S. and they've helped a law enforcement in some way. And T visa is if you've been a victim of human trafficking, and that's the reason if you were trafficked into the U.S. So it's a really quick overview of the different types of evaluations the different types of cases that may require an evaluation.
And as a client, you don't need to know that much. And that's good. And that's good that you hear all of this, because then when you talk and they explain to you, you kind of get it. Yeah. But the important thing is that you know what is the kind of application you are doing.
Right.
And that this little number on the top that will tell you a lot, like I-31, 130, 601, like all of these little things, or U visa or T visa. And always have your evaluator told to your lawyer. If your evaluator is not talking to your lawyer, there is a risk that you didn't convey enough the information or the appropriate information. And then the person finished the evaluation and then it gets rejected, or your lawyer say, this is not what we meant. So it's important that you make them communicate. And also, it's very important that you distinguish something like Lydiana say. Sometimes you need a doctor to sign, a psychologist with a PhD to sign because it's a waiver, or because needs testing. And sometimes you don't need that. And that is important to you sometimes because if you don't need that, you can go with a master, with a social worker, and you feel comfortable and you do it. And sometimes the price is different too. So something else, guys? So you wanted to say something about it, or we go to the next question?
Yeah.
We're fine?
Yeah.
Okay. How long do you take to do the interview and the exams? Cecilia.
Sure. It varies. I know we're saying that for a lot of the answers, but it does vary on a couple of things, the kind of case it is, and also how much time we have. If we have ample time, we can spend 2 to 4 sessions doing the interviews. Especially when we're talking about something like trauma, I tell clients that it kind of depends on them. I have clients that like to try to get through it really quickly. I have clients that it's very difficult for them to talk about it, so they need to take more frequent breaks. So ideally, we're talking about several sessions. Sometimes we don't have the luxury of that time because the report is due very quickly, and so we're sort of condensing the work. So I would say it depends, but average is a couple of 2 to 4 sessions.
Mm-hmm. Lydiana?
Yes, and also the time of the interview, like when you go and meet with the professional, it can vary depending on how much time and terms you have for the report. Like if you need it more like in 1 or 2 seats, then it's usually like 3 to 4 hours every time you come, or around that time. But if you come and you see the person several, at least this is how I do it in my practice, several times, not only once, then it's usually kind of like an hour or 2 hours every time you meet with the person, to also have that into consideration. And the time for giving the information, like giving the feedback of the evaluation, that's usually like also like around 30 minutes to an hour. And it's much better if you are able to also do it in person as opposed to the phone. Because even though it's an evaluation that is needed as a document, it can bring a lot, and it can be helpful in a way. It can give you like an idea of some recommendations of how to, improve your life in general, like your mental health.
We are talking here about an interview that is sensitive. We are talking about a conversation that is sensitive. So it's important that you know that your evaluator has expertise in trauma, or is a therapist with a license, or something that you can rely on. Mm-hmm. Because this is it's a little different, because the lawyers, I hear sometimes that the lawyers is the lawyer and they have the assistant, and the assistant is doing the questions, Mm-hmm. And they give the information, they cater the information to the lawyers. Here is different because the person who is interviewing you is holding the space for you emotionally. Mm-hmm. And is pulling what information is needed accordingly to the case. So you are not going to be judged. You are not going to be questioned about your answers. You are not going to be, the evaluators are not official from the immigrations. They don't do that. They are just pulling information to put together to make your case. Yeah. So it's important that you take your time, you space between sessions, if possible. So please give us time. If you know that your evaluation is due in 3 months from now, please come as soon as possible so we can space time for you. Yeah?
Mhm.
You give us time. So what is a normal waiting time for the person to do the reports, for the evaluator to have the report ready? Lydiana.
Yes.
Lydiana. Yeah, you are so cute. You wait.
Yes.
Wait. Thank you.
The average, it depends. Again, sorry, I know we're being vague in some of these things, but it definitely depends on the person doing the evaluation. In my case, I also have a psychologist. She's pre-licensed and she's also doing it. So I have a little more capacity in terms of availability. So in our case, it's usually within 2 to 3 weeks from the day that the evaluation started. Now, that would depend on the person that you're seeing, if they have more cases or if their time is limited. My time right now is limited. So if somebody, like if I have an influx of clients, then it would take longer because I'm counting on, her name is Dr. Damaris Galarza, to help me with that. But if I would have to do them, then it would definitely be more because I have a lot in my plate right now. So it would be like around a month. But definitely to clarify this from the get-go when you contact a professional in terms of the time frame and the timeline. It's really important.
Cecilia.
Yeah, I would agree. It's hard to give averages because it depends on the case, on the complexity of the case. Right now, I'm probably 2 weeks out from the last time I see a client. But again, if you need this sooner because you're coming up against a court date, or you need it for whatever reason sooner, it's really important for us to know as soon as possible. That way, I do sometimes reserve sort of emergency spots for clients. The sooner we know about it, the better we can adjust our schedule so that we can get this to you as needed. But on average, from the last time I see a client, I have the report ready in about 2 weeks.
Keep in mind that you are giving us information that is very precious to you, and it needs to be arranged in a way that is appropriate for the circumstance. So with that said, keep in mind that we are going to take that information and weave it into a story. And that requires inspiration, creativity, and it requires time to be, at least in my mind, it requires time to get form in my mind. So it takes time for me. I put all the bones first of the story, and then I go for a walk, I take a shower, I have fun, and then I come back and say, I want this particular part of the client to show in this area, or I want that, or I want that. So it's an art that requires time to be processed. And also, I agree with Cecilia and Lydiana, when you need something quickly, talk to us and let us know immediately so we can take time ourselves and we can say whether or not we can take it accordingly to our caseload. Yeah. So it is a precious thing to have your story in our hands. And we are working on it. We take it as seriously and with ethic, with all the ethic considerations. So please, I am telling you all of this because some of my clients literally tell me, "Come on, Carmen, see, it's only 3 or 4 hours. You can do it today." And like, no, I want today, 1 day, 1 hour now, 1 hour later, 1 hour later, and I want to take my time to weave the story. And unless I commit to do that in 1 day and I clear my space for anything else. Yeah. So it takes time because it is something very precious. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What happened if I refuse to have an evaluation done, Lydiana? If I am the client and I don't want an evaluation.
Yes, which, and you, as a client, you always have the right to choose that. Now, the piece that I always say, because that's even in my consent, and I'm discussing the benefits and the possible negative consequences that could the evaluation bring. But something really important is to first consult with your lawyer about your reasoning why and have that information. Now, one of the consequences is that you won't have the potential information that can come as an evaluation, because this would be like extra information, like objective information that could help support your finding, support the reasons that you're requesting that your for your immigration status to be resolved. So all of that. So that would be one of the things that you would have that extra kind of support. Now, the other side of not doing it, then it's that aspect that you might not then have to deal with opening or talking about things that you don't want to or that are really hurtful. And this is one of the common kind of how I see like response out of trauma, which is avoidance. That's what I see the most, because who wants to deal with what troubles us? I mean, I don't want to do that either. But by being vulnerable and being able to share with someone that is a good fit, that somebody that is able to kind of ground you and not just go question by question, it could be so beneficial for your case. So I would definitely usually lean more into use it and do it and work through it. If you feel like there's a lot of things coming up, then maybe you might also need therapy on the side while you're doing the evaluation. That could also happen.
Yeah, I agree. This isn't something that anyone can force you to. This isn't a mandated evaluation. We're all doing these in order to help your case. If your lawyer has recommended that you have this type of evaluation, it's because they think it's going to be beneficial to you in some way. And, try to see this as an opportunity that oftentimes you may not have a lot of control over what happens in your case, but this is something that is within your control and you can do to help bolster your claims. I was reading some statistics, I think they were from 2015, 2017, where they had looked at clients who had applied for asylum, those who had applied and had an evaluation, and those who had applied without an evaluation. And the approval rate was twice as high for the clients who applied with an evaluation. So it really does make a difference. It's very hard, as everyone's been saying. It's very painful memories. We're not asking these to make you uncomfortable. We are trying to help the case, and it does involve talking about some painful things sometimes, though.
We want for the judge or for the person who is reading your evaluation and taking that very important decision for your life, we want them to have all the information about you that is needed for this. Yeah, remember, the more information, the better. So our job as evaluators in the mental health is to tell that person, this is what this person suffered, this is how it suffered, this is the diagnosis, this is how it is. This is a part of a story that you may be willing to listen or to read or whatever. So it make stronger your case. And this is important for you to consider. And really, many clients say, I don't want that. I don't want because I'm going to cry. Yeah. And true. Most likely, when we're talking about trauma, you are going to cry. But I will tell you that I prefer for you to cry now when you can control and it's in a therapy session or with a evaluator than crying when you don't know when, if does get rejected or you lose this family member or you don't get approved or whatever it is, and your children crying. So pick. And it's painful, I know, but also talk to your lawyer. Some lawyers don't think about evaluation immigrations. Maybe you need to bring the topic to them and say, what is it? Why we are not adding an evaluation immigration here? So, yeah, sorry, we are in this business of sensitive information.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wow, this is a question that is a little tricky. What is a reasonable price, Lydiana?
Yes. So obviously, before I talk about that, there's going to be some caveats. In this case, it would be in terms of taking in consideration the time that it takes, because for most of us that do this evaluation, it's not just the time that the person comes and meets with us, which can take like about 4 hours on average. It's also all the time that it requires to put all the information together, like score the test if there's testing or questionnaires, also pay for the psychological evaluations if there's such, and the pay of just the materials to also support it, whether it's psychological testing or anything else. and the time that it takes to not only put the whole story together, but to consult with the lawyer, to consult with or read the documents. Like when I was doing asylum cases in the detention center, sometimes the documents were like over 100 pages of the medical records and stuff like that I had to go through to have a good report. So to add all that, is about like around 6 to 8 hours. And I'm saying 6 to be kind of on the slim, on the kind of easy cases, but it can take even more than 8 hours. Like it could take like 10 hours. And if there's driving involved, because when I used to go to detention centers, there was 2-hour drive each way without traffic. And that's big, important in California. It would definitely like take me much more longer. Now, how I like to do it to be fair for my time as well is to do it, not think ahead, how many hours would it take, and charge the fee that I do for individual therapy for my hourly fee into that. So mine are usually about $1,250, like $1,250 to like $1,500 on the easier ones. And if there's like needing to drive and all that, then I add that into consideration. And some people go like, because I have a pre-licensed psychologist in my practice who already completed all the requirements, the over 3,000 hours postdoc. So she's not a newbie. But sometimes they ask me, well, she's like pre-licensed and to charge less. And actually, it takes me it's more work because I have to review the whole document, really thorough. I have to edit it. I have to meet with that person. So I charge the same for that as well.
Of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, they are lucky that you charge the same, not more.
Yes, I know. Now as I'm thinking, I'm like, wait.
Yeah, wait.
Yes.
Cecilia.
So I would say that a couple of things to keep in mind when pricing. One is just location. As we all know, the cost of living on the coast is higher. So if you are getting your evaluation done in New York by the same person with the same degree, with the same experience, it's going to cost you a lot more in New York than if you're living in Ohio. The other thing is the prices are going to vary according to a clinician's education. Master level clinicians are going to, in general, charge less than PhD levels because a doctoral level psychologist, as you guys have been talking, can conduct psychological exams, which a master level clinician cannot. So that is a different price. So it's going to vary according to those. It's hard to give a range. I would say nationwide, they go somewhere between probably $500 on the low end up to $2,000 and more. But that's a really wide range, and it does depend on the type of case, the education of your evaluator, the experience of your evaluator too. Is this the first time they're doing an evaluation, or have they been doing it for years? And of course, their education level.
Yes, in the Bay Area, probably the cheapest one will be $600, and all the way to $1,500, $1,600. I do the same. I base on how many hours that will be in my therapy session, and I want to be as clear as possible to my clients. I explain. I give them a document where say this is how many hours you are going to meet with me. This is how many hours I am sitting in writing, and this is how much it will be for you. And that range between $1,200, $1,500, more or less. Mm-hmm. So sometimes if I pass those hours because I just was having hard time being creative with your story, sometimes I take it. That doesn't go translate into your fee. And also, we didn't talk in Spanish about this, but something that I tell my clients is there is a minimal possibility that they call me later and I need to do a phone interview with the evaluation with the immigration team. And that will be also for you to pay. Yeah. But in 7 years, nobody, thank God, call me. Yeah. But it's also always good to know. Yeah. They can call later, and that will be 1 hour or 1 hour of preparation or whatever, and that you will be needed to pay too for your evaluator. Yeah. So thank you. This is a start. This is a start for somebody who is doing an evaluation. At least get them some preparation for them and have go and have a better experience. This video and audio can be very useful for lawyers, for other evaluators, for the public in general. So thank you, Lydiana and Cecilia, for being part of this. I'm very happy with the production we have been done for the last 2 hours here.
Thank you.
Cecilia, will you tell us where to find you, and then Lydiana, and we all share where to find us for the ones who are driving. If you are not driving and you are in your computer, click in the notes and go in the notes, and all the links for the phone number, everything, how to find us, you will have it there. Go to emotionsinharmony.org, search for evaluations, and you will find this episode. Cecilia, please.
Sure. So my practice is called Alta Vista Therapy, and the website is www.altavistatherapy.com. And if you are a clinician and you're interested in these type of evaluations, as Carmen mentioned, we have a Facebook group that's a really great place to network and learn more and get lots of support. And I'll pass along the link to that, but it's the Facebook group is called Immigration Evaluation Therapist. So you can just search for that.
Oh, you will enjoy it so much. We are part of this group, and every question or whatever, but you need to be evaluator. Yeah. It's not for clients.
Right.
Yes. We have the Facebook for bilingual therapists and mental health workers. So go and find bilingual mental health providers or something like that, and you'll find us as well. Lydiana.
Yes. You can find me, I would say, my website. I have information, but also if I want to, let me start with the social media, because lately that's the easiest. So it will be Dr. Lydiana Garcia. So DR, and then my first name is spelled L-Y, Diana, D-I-A-N-A, Garcia. And that's my, for Facebook, and you can find my Facebook page. For my website is www.drlydianagarcia.com. And over there, you'll have information about my contact, my email, and all that. But I would definitely say Facebook could be, one of those places. And the same goes with Instagram. It would be, I don't know how to say the little A in the circle. Right now, my lingo. There we go. Thank you. At dr.lydianagarcia. So, yeah.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. We are here for you. We are here if you need an evaluation immigration, and we want to do it with love and care. Yeah. And thank you for listening. Please share this with your lawyer. Yeah. Take this to your lawyer and tell them how amazing evaluators you found. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for the Love to Emotions in Harmony podcast. Please donate, because we are a nonprofit and we live on your donations. Please donate and share. This is the best donation you can do for us. Share with others. Thank you, and see you next week. Bye for now.
We have ended one more episode of Emotions in Harmony. See you the next one, when Dr. Carmen Roman will help us to have a more fulfilled life caring for ourselves and the ones we care for. Meanwhile, visit www.emotionsinharmony.com to see the show notes, subscribe, and enjoy more content.